Welcome to episode 166 of Respawn Aim Fire, the kick-ass urban gaming podcast from Affable Idiots. I am Holden Christopher Adams DePardo, and I am here with...
Chad Michael Innes.
Ooh, yeah. And we've got the dreamiest fan base of all time joining us from all over the world right now.
Like Kenya.
Every Tuesday... Like Kenya. We have a lot of listeners in Kenya. Every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, put us in your eyes with your favorite podcast service, or put us in your eyes by searching for Respawn Aim Fire. Did I say eyes twice? Put us in your ears. Put us in your ears with your favorite podcast service, or put us in your eyes by searching for Respawn Aim Fire on YouTube. That's right. We've got into the third dimension with 2D video, and if you want to add the fourth dimension of time, you can do that by watching us record it live at twitch.tv/affableidiots. Eyes. Every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, like we're doing right now. Today's episode is brought to you by Affable Idiots, which we'll tell you about later in the episode. But that's it for the housekeeping. We've got an super exciting, maybe the biggest episode we've ever done.
It's going to be very big. Big. It's a very big episode. Big things coming.
Biggest episode.
Love it. I'm going to love it. You're going to love it. It's perfect.
We got the Pokemon Cafe. We're going to talk all about Pokemon Cafe.
Pokemon Cafe that's it. Baby. Free to start? Yeah. Hell yes.
Why talk about anything else? Such as the smart delivery update or hardware update on the PS5 and some new info on the PS5 games we'll be playing, some of which in 2021, as we will discuss later on. But until then, a big PS4 game came out this week.
Yeah, it did.
And we can talk about that. But there's a bigger game that came out as well this week, and it's undeniable that the Pokemon Shield expansion was a massive release.
I actually forgot
I started playing it.
I even asked you if you played it, and you said, I played a little bit, and that still didn't register in my mind that it came out, obviously.
I have not a lot of great things to say so far. So why don't we talk about The Last of Us Part 2 and really just not talk about the expansion pass until I'm done playing it and experienced its boringness in its entirety.
Gotcha.
So Chad, how was The Last of Us Part 2?
Perfect. So yes, I have played and beat The Last of Us Part 2. Everyone feel free to touch me. It'll be $7 per touch. You can touch wherever you like, though. I played it. I beat it in 2 days. I'm exhausted. I am emotionally depleted. It is a masterpiece work of art that I think everyone who has any interest in video games should play, and that is all I'm going to say about the game. I will not say anything else, because that entire game is one giant spoiler. Like, everything about that game is a spoiler, and I'm so happy I went in completely blind, because I was taken aback. So, that's it. I'm not telling you anything about The Last of Us Part 2, but if you're interested in my thoughts on it, later this week we will be having a spoiler chat on... It's looking like Friday. We're going to have many, many guests from around the world that you all have seen and loved before. Check that out on Friday, probably. If not, we'll have more communication on on Twitter about when it's happening. But that's it. That's all you're getting from me on Last of Us Part 2 that does not include spoilers.
What about No Man's Sky, Chad? You got to play No Man's Sky this week.
Fuck that game about that straight up its hole. Yeah, we played No Man's Sky for game night last week, and I tried to be a good sport about it. I try to branch out and do things that other people want to play. I'm
going to counter that for a second. You literally at a certain point while playing it said, I'm just going to watch a TV show and just put my controller to the side.
I was not a good sport while playing it, but I was a good sport about making it a game night game because I wanted you all to be happy. It turns out the game sucks, and no one was happy playing it anyway, except for you and a little bit of Dallas. And I felt like the whole time it was you and Dallas apologizing for what we were experiencing then and promising us that something good eventually comes of that game. Yeah, I played it and I hated it. And I knew going in I wasn't going to like it. And I walked in with that attitude, which was probably a mistake, except that I played 2 hours of it before we actually played it for game night. And I realized I didn't like it then because there's no point to anything you're doing. And it's all literally just shooting a beam at different parts on a planet and getting materials so that you can build something that needs more materials. And then it's like, cool, now that you've built this thing, build another thing. Oh, by the way, you need more materials. Oh, you need to go to another planet? You need materials for fuel. You want to brush your teeth? You need materials for toothpaste. And it's all just you destroying rocks. and that game is fucking boring. And after I stopped, I stopped playing during game night. Eventually, I was just like, I was getting so frustrated. You were obviously frustrated with me. I was frustrated with you.
No, I wasn't frustrated. I just thought it was really funny because I totally wasn't surprised that you hated it.
It was making for a less than stellar experience. So I remained on the Discord chat, and I was like, I'm going to go edit our website. I'm going to work on that while you guys play this game. Brent was finally speaking my language. He was like, y'all, I don't think I like this game at all. I was like, thank you. Please, dear God, other people speak the truth. Did not enjoy. Will not play again. I deleted it while we were playing it. That's my experience with No Man's Sky.
I had the exact opposite reaction. I'm thinking like, shit, I want to keep playing more of this game because I hadn't really gotten into the story aspects to it yet. And it's not this like super, super in-depth story, but it does add for me context to it to make it fun to kind of explore the universe while I have kind of my own goals. I'm trying to find someone named Artemis right now, so I'm kind of scouring the universe looking for him by going to different solar systems and putting down like tracking locations and beams and stuff like that. And I've enjoyed that. I thought that's been really cool. But yeah, it's very much like it is very much a survival game where it's about getting the resources you need so you can manage your inventory and kind of keep going. And the thrill of it is in the long term, I'd say, and the like, you know, the really cool planets that you will come across as you get better equipment to go to more exotic solar systems. But they definitely push that stuff way back until you are invested in it. And I think that's a mistake because some of the later planets I've seen are incredibly beautiful, actually, and aren't just rocky landscapes. Like, they're lush forests. And I'm like, where was this? Like, at the beginning, you realize you turned so many people off by just having rocks everywhere and like trees kind of sparsely all over the place. It's a good game, but it's like, to your point, like everything you said, I don't disagree with it. It's just it is a forest specific audience. All that aside, though, it still really impresses me that a handful of people made that game.
Yeah, and that
it's mind-blowing.
A handful of people made it. It's all procedurally generated. Like, they didn't say, I think it'd be really cool if this planet had warthog face plants and this one had like it's all just made up. That was cool. We
got to be fair though, the multiplayer is a mess.
Oh my
it's
God,
awful.
Yeah, a disaster. Like,
it
was all a lie.
No, it was, so like there were points where, it was a lie in the sense that I would see a marker for Matt and I'd be like, oh, Matt just mentioned he was in trouble, let me go over and see him, and then he wasn't there, but his marker was showing that he was right there. And then I turned around and there was a second marker for Matt, and that was the real Matt. So there was like two markers for people sometimes. It was a mess.
Yeah, and then it told you guys halfway through our thing that I left your game. And then it was like 20 minutes later, I finally got off the planet and I was zooming towards you. Like, you guys, we're still in the same game. You guys just left the planet and I can see your names. And then you're like, you need to go to a space station. I was like, I think I'm at the space station. I was like, no, you're not. I'm at it. It was like, me too. And you're like, I'm right on the other side of it, and I flew completely 360 around. I was like, no, you're not. It tells me you're way the fuck over there. And it was a big hot mess.
Wow.
I do appreciate, though, I found it adorable that there were parts in it that I felt, whether this was your intention or not, there were parts of our playtime together where I felt like you were trying to make it seem really cool. That you were like, oh my God, I didn't realize there was going to be an epic space battle when I got out here. Oh shit, I'm so scared for my life. And like running from these guys. I didn't know if that was genuine or whether you were like hyping it up a little bit to make it seem cooler than it was.
No, it's exciting because you get like a notification that's like hostile hostile subspace scan like incoming or something like that. And they'll scan your inventory and you're like, shit, I have these warp drives and those are really valuable. And if they kill me, then I lose those warp drives and I have to scavenge the resources to get it back. So like, I know what the stake is because they kind of say, hey, this is what they're into. So it's either like I can try to run away from them through the asteroid field or I can fight them head on. And yeah, it is exciting.
I never had anything valuable enough for other people to want to take it. So I guess that's something I will never
that might be a factor.
I will never experience. That's it. That's all I want to ever talk about No Man's Sky about ever.
Well, then we will move on. Speaking of The Last of Us Part 2, let's go to the fetch quests. Ooh! The Last of Us Part 2 smashes sales records. This is from Christopher Dring at GameIndustry.biz. 76% more sales at launch than The Last of Us, the first one. So that's obviously a huge improvement for the franchise. Compared to Naughty Dog's last game, Uncharted 4, they had a 1% increase, but it's notable that was only digital sales, and considering the increase in the amount of digital sales that they've been seeing lately that will probably be higher than 1%. Not too much higher, I can imagine.
4 or 5 years since Uncharted 4 came out. And now digital is now a much bigger part of Sony's business than it was back then.
It's a bigger part of Sony's business, and I think people, and it just dawned on me right now, people aren't going to be willing to go to a store, or as willing to go to a store to buy it, so they'll buy it digitally instead. So, that number could get a lot bigger. I'd be curious to see that changed. But in the UK, it topped Animal Crossing New Horizons by 40%.
We did it. We did it.
Which was previously the biggest launch in the region of the year so far. So congratulations to Naughty Dog.
The install base is 3 times as large. So I mean that kind of doesn't make it as much of an impressive feat, but it doesn't matter because Animal Crossing is fucking dead and gone. And that's what matters. Speaking of, how's your island? I haven't heard you talk about Animal Crossing in a long time.
I haven't been playing it nearly as much lately. I play it like once a week at this point, and I like it, but I want to get more back into it again because that was a poor way of saying that. But I have a project I'm working on to kind of change the town, but it's such a big project that kind of deters me from like spending the time in the game to do it because I'd rather right now play No Man's Sky, or I actually want to play The Last of Us before I play Last of Us Part 2 on July 4th. So like there's things I kind of want to play. Oh, I have to do Alan Wake.
You're so, like, I want to play The Last of Us all the way through and then play The Last of Us Part 2 all the way through in like a 2-week time span?
Yeah.
Hold on. Please tell me you have a therapist on call. That game. Whew, those games. Plural.
Oh, I'm not worried. I can handle dark content. Quantum Error release date could move to 2020. Not will be. It could move to 2021, says developer.
That's from Brianna game, Reeves, right? That kind of reminded me of Fear.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like a Dead Spacious kind of game, it's FDA approves game marketed as treatment for ADHD. Brought to us by Brendan Sinclair at gamesindustry.biz. So this is intended for children between 8 and 12. Endeavor RX, the company who makes it, they recommend 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week for 1 month. And after that, it can be repeated, but they suggest a 4-week gap between treatments. I am curious to see what it is that makes this FDA approved.
Yeah, I was trying to like look up trailers or things like that. All you can really find for this thing is that one screenshot. And part of it has to be, I'm sure, because it's prescription only. Like, you can only play this game if it's prescribed to you by a doctor. I don't know what the delivery method of it is or anything like that, but, like, yeah, I'm wondering. From the screenshot, it llooks like there's definitely a lot going on to distract you. There's big purple spiky balls. There's a weird square with an eyeball in it off to the side. There's lots of colorful shapes. So maybe it's all about trying to hold your attention somehow. So I'm curious how it works.
Yeah.
Maybe I should go see a doctor. Get diagnosed with ADHD. Which I'm sure is a very real possibility.
Yeah. For most people, yes. I think that it's a cool idea to see games being used for this because I feel like there's an application for games that we haven't opened up yet, which is serious like education with it. Not like the stupid typing games that every kid hates because they're so lame.
Read a Rabbit. Like Math Blaster.
Yeah. Hooked on Phonics.
Hooked on Phonics.
Because you could have some really cool games like Ring Fit Adventure, which sold 1 million units in Japan, that does something more than just a game. It's fitness. So that's honestly good for Ring Fit Adventure.
Sorry, I know that was a really awesome transition, and I'm sorry to fuck it up. But I think you're right as far as like actually using them for learning, because if I think about a lot of the vocabulary that I have now as an adult, like I hear words and people are like, what does that word mean? I was like, well, it means this. I'm like, how did you ever hear that word? It's like, I don't know. I saw it in Dragon Quest when I was 8, and I learned what it was from there. Like, playing these RPGs and Pokemon, like, there's so much reading and so many words that you learn about.
Not only that, you have to comprehend the words to know how to best use the systems to get the most out of the game. As opposed to, like, Schoolhouse Rock, which is like, here's a song. If you don't remember the song, you're fucked. But you will remember what the game teaches you because you have to do well in the game if you enjoy the game. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good applications for it. That and empathy. I think that if you are in the world and see the consequences of your actions in that world, it's not to spoil too much about Last of Us Part 2, but it sounds like that's kind of something that is mildly touched upon maybe in the game, is empathy and the consequences of your actions. So good stuff. Rumor, Resident Evil Village next gen only due to current gen limits. This is also from Brianna Reeves at PlayStation Lifestyle. I'm all for that. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of Resident Evil games on next gen. On a current gen. I don't think they need to do a cross gen game. I'd rather it be next gen exclusive.
Yeah.
And then our last fetch quest is that
like a weight limit. Like that they aren't heavy enough.
Exactly. Yeah. No. In the article, they said that this is from Aesthetic Gamer, the same guy who's told us everything about Resident Evil before.
And so much of it turned out to be true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe him. And he basically said that it's because the game was becoming exploration focused, and they were having issues where they couldn't get the environments to load in the proper way they needed them to on current gen. So they just are keeping it next gen exclusive.
Yeah.
So.
And Resident Evil traditionally has been all about like really dense maze-like environments rather than big expansive ones. So it's like something that's not huge, and so you don't have to load a lot of different types of environments, but it's one environment that they lock off and you have to go back and explore Metroidvania style.
Yeah.
Cool.
The last item here on the Fetch Quest, EA had a dumb event where they showed us Star Wars Squadron and mentioned Skate 4.
EA
That's
Play,
it.
what a big old cock tease. That game, or that event sucked.
It was really
so
bad.
Boring. Star Wars Squadrons does not look good to me. It looks like your regular ass space battles, that you play in Battlefront, which are not fun to me. And then Skate 4. It sounds like to me, this is exactly what happened. My opinion on exactly what happened. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 got announced, and everyone freaked out. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. I can't wait. This is going to look so good. And they're putting so much care into this. And then a couple of guys from EA are like, what if we remade Skate? Or what if we made a new Skate game? And one of them said, sure. And that was their announcement. They didn't...
100%.
It was even worse than the announcement about Pokemon Sword and Shield at that Nintendo Direct where they announced that the next one was coming, where they literally didn't have anything about the game, not even a title. They just had a guy sitting there drawing a Pokemon. Except for in this one, they weren't even drawing a skateboard. They were just like, yeah, we think it'd be cool, so it's coming sometime.
Yeah. This is going to be a few years away. It's so weird the way they announced it. And it was the closer. It was like the big grand the closer. It was also one of only 2 announcements that I thought were of any significance.
What was the other one?
There was some of the EA original, Squadron, but that was also announced before the event.
Right, that trailer played several days before.
Yeah, which is a weird way of handling that. I get that you want to build hype for your event, but if you know you have 2 big announcements, don't show the first big announcement before you get to the event, because it made the entire event even worse than it already was. And
EA's
then
always kind of done that, though. You remember when they announced Battlefield, was it 1 or Battlefield 5? It was one of those, and they showed, even at EA Play, at their conference, they showed a very short teaser, like, this is the next Battlefield coming. Stay tuned tomorrow to Microsoft's press conference at E3 for more single-player information. And then we get there, and it's literally just like 4 seconds more of the trailer. The same trailer with like 4 extra seconds.
oh yeah, that's right.
What are you guys doing? What are you doing?
It's terrible. It is really bad marketing, straight up. And then also, it doesn't even really look that great. I liked the trailer for it, like the first one they showed, and I liked just the idea, but they were kind of talking about it, and I'm like, oh, it's a $40 game, and if EA is doing a $40 game, I think you pointed out they really must not have confidence in it. Oh, just doesn't. I don't know. We'll see how maybe it's great. I don't know.
Their contract with Star Wars is up in like what, 2 years or something like that.
They have to get it out. Yeah.
Yep.
Here's my big upset about this: is I feel like if they did this, it's because they want to have a separate serious space battle experience. From like Battlefront. My favorite Battlefront game was Battlefront Elite Squadron on the PSP, where the battle ranged from the ground to space to in a space station. And there was a loading screen when going between each of those kind of different sections of the map, but you could do it. You could like get in a ship, fly up, a little bit of a loading screen, then you're in space, then you go into the space station, a little bit of a loading screen. But it felt really epic, especially because it was on a handheld at the time.
Yeah.
And I've just kind of figured, like, oh, we're on next gen. The new Battlefront game that they just announced is going to do that, and then they didn't. And I'm like, oh, Battlefront 2 is coming out. It would be really cool if the big change with this one is they're going to do the space battles all as one big battle. That'd be amazing, because they've done it before on a handheld on a PSP. Like, next gen can do it, and then they didn't do it. And then I see this, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to give up hope. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's just not going to. They want them to be separate experiences because they can make the moolah on the monies, and sad.
Shame. Shame.
Moving on to the Microsoft Quest log. We've known about smart delivery for several months. A question I had for the program was how consumers would distinguish between Series X and Xbox One games in a retail store or even on online stores. Looks like we've gotten an important part of that answer. So Xbox Series X smart delivery got this upbeat trailer showcasing crossover titles. That's the headline from Nick Biazzo at GameRanks. At the end of the video, Microsoft shows a logo and just says, like, kind of keep an eye out for this logo.
Yeah.
At the end of the
down
trailer.
arrow with the box, and it says smart delivery.
Mm-hmm.
What I still don't really understand is that logo on an Xbox One box? Is that logo on an Xbox Series X box? Are those two separate boxes?
Are you going to go into the retail store and see an Xbox One copy of Halo Infinite next to a Series X copy of the same exact game? But even though it doesn't actually matter which disc you pick, it will play the same version of that game, like, because of how smart delivery works. I'm still like confused, but this at least like answers a portion of that question for me, that because not all games are going to support this because it's up to the developer. Like, I'm sure there'll be games that don't support this. If you go to the online store, you'll at least see something that says, hey, I have an Xbox One. I know this isn't a stupid investment for me to buy this game right now. And I think ultimately the vast majority of games will have that symbol on it.
With the exception
it's good
of
information.
Madden NFL 21. They've changed their... You remember when they announced that, like, it's part of smart delivery, but in order to do that, you have to buy the game before December 31st, and then you have to redeem it by March something.
Yep.
They've actually changed it up now so that you have to buy the game before Madden NFL 22 comes out. So you have that entire whole year as part of the smart delivery program.
What financial difference does that actually make to EA besides them being assholes? I hate to call them assholes, but like it's kind of a dick move.
Yep.
There's no way they're going to make any meaningful amount of profit that they can be proud to their, stockholders and say, look at all this money we made by screwing over employees and being the giant jerk that we've always been in the industry.
By the way, in the chat, Dallas says you can actually do ground and space battles in Battlefront 2, I believe. But they're two separate experiences.
They're two separate experiences. In the PSP version of the game, it was a continuous experience. You could start on the ground, fly into space, and then go back down in any which way you want to. It was it was all encompassing.
You could fly up and start shooting shit in space while I'm still fighting shit on the ground. And then you can come back down. Maybe I take your ship and fly back up too. Like, I think that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas right now, Dallas, it's a 17-hour multiplayer match where you fight on the ground for 30 minutes, and then you get in a ship for 30 minutes, and then you come back to the ground for some reason, regardless of who wins, and you fight again for 30 minutes, and you get back in the ship, even though everybody lost. I don't understand.
Wait, Dell's saying yes, you can do that too. Are you saying there's a mode in Battlefront 2 where you can start on the ground, in the same match, fly up into space, go into a space battle? Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, Dallas is a little different. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. That's what I thought. Get your facts straight, Mr. Smith.
Microsoft has also detailed 3 different scenarios on how smart delivery will be implemented. This is really regurgitating a lot of the same information, but there's a specific reason that I want to bring this back up again.
Okay.
Game Pass. If a game, so there's 3 ways in which basic smart delivery operates. Game Pass. If a game on Game Pass or a game you own has a Series X enhancements, that's the version you're going to get on Series X. So if you have a Series X, you get those enhancements, whether it's a Game Pass game or you own that game. For upcoming cross-gen games, if a game comes out and has an Xbox One and Series X version, you'll get the version for your Xbox model. Then the Series X updates post-release. So in the case like Cyberpunk 2077, this applies. If an Xbox One game releases without Series X enhancements, it will still work on the Series X in like a backwards compatibility mode, just like 360 games do right now. If the game gets updated later, then the game will update with improvements, and that'll happen automatically.
I think basically called this out a long time ago when they announced smart delivery, and all of these things already happen. Like if something becomes enhanced for Xbox One X, like this same thing happens with One X, but now they're just replacing the One with Series. It's like, cool, I guess.
So it's all the same stuff. One thing I've noticed though that's a little different is before they didn't necessarily say it was going to be for every single game. But they just kind of said this is their philosophy going into the next generation. And there wasn't really a discussion on what the limits of that were. And then this time, they're much more explicit with their language, and they say, basically that it's up to the developers. They don't have to do this if they don't want to. And EA, of course, is like messing with the rules and doing it in their own way. I shouldn't say messing with the rules. They're using the rules to how they want to use them. So I think this is and I wonder if this is why Sony hasn't been talking about this as openly, is that they don't want to make this promise or lead people to believe that this is going to work for everything.
Interesting thought. More thoughts on Sony and their parts coming up later in our main quest.
Let's do that. We can go there right now. Do you have anything else to say about smart delivery?
No.
All right. So, Sony Quest Log. Last week, we had an image comparing the PS5 size towards other consoles, which revealed it to be extremely large in comparison. A new image has leaked, also demonstrating its size, as well as a new angle in the box. So this is a report from PlayStation Lifestyle right here, Chandler Wood. An image of the PS5 on factory production line, large size of console. It's an
Let's see if I can
headline.
just drop this in our stream right now so people can see it. I can!
Yeah.
There we go.
Cool. The image comes from Reset Era, so an analysis of the photo and reverse image searches point to it being legitimate and not being doctored, or like here's just another photo that of a production line where they're holding up like the new Mac or something like that, and they photoshopped a PS5 and they're like, it seems to be a legit image. The size of the console to some might be a downside, but there might be a reason for it. So this also comes from Dennis Patrick at GameRanks here. The PlayStation 5 Heat required a larger console size. So Matt McLaren, who's the VP of EX Design at PlayStation, he said the size of the box just helps the device cool down because the internal components are really powerful. So it's just intended for heat, which makes sense that they've been talking about how important that's been for them for a while now. So all that makes sense.
Thank the Lord. Because two things. One, booting up the load screen of The Last of Us Part 2, my PlayStation got louder than it's ever been in its life. So loud that I even took a video of it and sent it to Dallas and Matt. I was like, Jesus Christ, it was insanely loud. It wasn't actually that way for most of the other days playing it. But two, what do you think the size of it does? Do you think it's just like an advanced cooling system, or do you think making it bigger like that allows them to maybe separate out components so they're not all like clustered together and just heating each other up, and maybe they just have some room to breathe while they're in there? What do you think the bigger space is actually used for?
I think that's a great point, because if you look at it's actually kind of funny that Xbox One and PS4, it's the opposite this time around. When we saw the Xbox One and the PS4, it was the Xbox was this giant honking device that has a giant fan and lots of space for components inside of it, and the PS4 was a sleeker, smaller device that was more powerful as well. And in this case, we have a bigger console that's kind of honking and huge, but the smaller, kind of more compact one is actually the more powerful one. But in terms of it being for heat, I think that's a big part of it. I think also it's harder. It's more cost effective. It's more expensive to miniaturize components and get them to fit into a smaller box. It's just more expensive. And I think that considering how price has clearly been a concern for them, especially since they keep talking about value. I think that might be a factor as well. Dallas sent me an article here. I just kind of touched on it briefly, saying that there's a new mode. So the headline here is Star Wars Battlefront 2's new mode starts on ground and ends in space. It's the largest mode in the game. This is from March 22nd, 2019. I think we played this.
Yep.
Didn't we play this? But it's still not the same.
Yeah. It was like a half hour on the ground, and then it went to space, and we were in space, and then it was on the ground.
But it wasn't.
Actually, no, that was still like you're inside of a ship just still running around shooting things. There is like an actual space battle mode where you're like piloting an X-Wing. But I remember we played it when we experimented with it a long time ago, and it was boring as hell. But it still was not like you were describing. Yeah, no, what I was describing is more seamless. It's not, there's no fragmentation. It's really you fly up to space, you're in space. There's a little bit of a loading screen, but it's meant to feel like a seamless world that you're battling in as opposed to splitting it up. Also, Brent says that I look like a human today. What does that mean? I mean, would you rather he say you look like a dog or something like that? No, but it's like saying, like, man, you look really thin right now. Like, did I look really fat before? Did I not look like a human before? Don't think too much about it. Just take the compliment. No, I'm not offended. I'm like literally going like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so anyway, we have a subscriber interrogative about the PS5 console, going back to that. This comes from the Space Ghost himself, from Matt RI. He asks, it's clear that the PS5 might be one of the biggest consoles ever made. Does console size matter to you?
Ooh, it's the motion of the ocean. And you can see from that, It's got waves. It's got waves. It's got good motion in that PS5. No, size of the console does not matter to me at all. It's something that inevitably, this might be a different generation for me because these things are designed to be, they are so obviously designed as if standing upright is their default. You can lay them on their side, but they want you to stand it up. But normally it doesn't matter because they just go into an entertainment center and I almost never see them anyway. But I mean, we've talked about this a little bit. Like we're gonna have to get a new entertainment center or build something new, like for these new consoles, because they're not gonna fit. There's no way I'm gonna lay that PS5 down, because when the PS5 is horizontal, it looks like a stupid duckbill eating a book, and I don't want that. You got to stand it upright because then it looks like a freaking Tower of Sauron. So I want that for sure. So I mean, it doesn't matter if it's just gonna be standing up next to my giant TV, as long as it doesn't make my TV look small. That's important to me. I need my TV to look enormous. So like,
this is like a little hands make.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you say. It's not about the size. It's about the motion of the ocean. And fuck, the ocean looked really good in Horizon Zero Dawn, and that's because of the size of that console. So I'm all for it. Yeah, I mean, like for me, my PS4 where it's at, it's already. There's a little bit of extra room, but not enough to put that PS5 down horizontally. If I could only put it down horizontally, I think I'd be a little bit more bothered by it. But upright, I think, it opens up a lot of opportunities of where you could put it. Like a lot of entertainment centers have like an outline outside the TV to fit for more than one TV size. You could put it like next to your TV in there, upright. Like there are options for you, but it is huge. It's absolutely huge. Matt also asks, do you think the PS5 will have one stock trim level when it comes to SSD size, or could the disk system have the bigger drive, or vice versa?
I'm going to say two things. One I want to happen, one I think will happen. One, I want the digital-only version to have a bigger hard drive. I would love for them to cost the same and just have that extra cost go towards putting more storage in the digital-only version. Obviously, because digital only means you're going to need more hard drive space, although not really, because you still have to install the disk anyway. But here's what I think is actually going to happen. They made in that game, the GDC conference, the Road to PS5 event that they showed off, they made such a big deal about the specific number, 825 gigabytes, and how that was the optimal size of a hard drive they found to work with their architecture and things like that. That leads me to believe that like that might be the only SKU we see for a long time. Like no matter what PS5 you get that one because it works so well with the new architecture and the CPU and the GPU. So I think that digital only will just maybe be like $50 cheaper, and they're going to have the same SSD size.
I have absolutely no idea. I was really thinking about this and trying to like every different angle I could think of. I'm like, that's legitimate. It could happen too. That's legitimate. It could happen too. And it really just kind of comes down to whatever they decide to do in Sony corporate. So like, I think something to consider is how putting the digital version as the more affordable, cheaper option is a massive deal in the industry. We have the Xbox SAD, but that wasn't the start of a new generation.
Right.
This is the start of a new generation where if it's the cheaper option, that's the standard option, is without the disk drive. How is that going to impact the businesses of Best Buy and GameStop, which Sony has an interest in maintaining because they sell a lot of games and they sell a lot of consoles through those outlets? Like I think for most people, if you're going to buy a console at launch, like, well, I should say for most people, for me, when I buy a console at launch, I actually want to go to a store to get it because I don't want to deal with Amazon had crazy, amounts of PS5s to ship, so they couldn't get to me that day, and now we're recording on Sunday and I can't even talk about it because I don't have it. Like if I go to a store and I pre-ordered it, I know I'm getting it because that's how those work. They send the amounts to the store they need to. It would hurt the business to I think, if they had the digital version as the standard. But at the same time, it would be cheaper for Sony to make. So it makes complete sense for them to make that the more affordable like version. And then I think to your point with the SSD and like the different storage sizes, I think especially with the expandability of it being able to, depending on what they mean, either add an additional hard drive or take the hard drive out and put in another one. I'm not sure which they actually meant, but we'll find out, I'm sure, pretty soon. Why would they put the money in to making additional SKUs that might not be as interesting to people when you can expand that drive later on?
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're going to see a different SKU for that reason, but I have no idea, because this is kind of unprecedented space to have a digital version of a console available at launch. If anything, I thought Microsoft would have done something like this, not Sony. So I'm even more perplexed and surprised. I don't know. I have no answer for you, Matt. I have no answers.
Other than, that's a good question.
It's a good question, yeah. So beyond hardware updates, we also got new information on Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Horizon Forbidden West, and Spider-Man Miles Morales. Woo! Let's start off with Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which, by the way, have you seen some of the other potential titles that fans have kind of created?
No.
I love them so much more, because Ratchet & Clank titles have...
Usually like punny, right?
They're punny, they have something kind of like humorous about them.
Booty.
Exactly. Size Matters was the PSP version. Like, they do funny stuff like that. Rift you a new one. That's great. I kind of like that. Like, rip you a new one. Like, rift you a new... I like that. Should have gone with that. Rift Apart. It's not bad, but...
Size Matters and Quest for Booty, they are still sentences whose words make sense together. Like, literally together. Whereas Rift you a new one, like... I guess
it could make sense in the
Rift
context
is like
of the
a
game.
tear, I guess, like tear you in. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I agree. It's definitely more
definitely
fun.
is not. It's not as clean as Size Matters and Quest for Booty. I can agree with that for sure.
What if though?
Yeah.
It won't be like potty toilet humor, but what if Rift Apart? Like the reason there's a Lady Lombax in this is because you get ripped into two. There's a boy and a girl version. You're ripped apart. Rift apart.
Here's my theory on this. Ratchet and Clank get separated. They're a rift apart from each other. So you play as Ratchet without Clank, so you don't get the abilities that Clank gives you. But then you have this female Lombax that shows up, and that's in the rift. That's in Clank's dimension, and they work together. And it's kind of about bridging that gap. And
I'll take it one further.
Again.
Clank gets separated into a different one, where in that one he is a Lombax. And that's why the Lady Lombax is gray. Boom. Boom, because she's actually a robot.
So the female Lombax doesn't have a name at all yet, but she will be playable is what Insomniac says, which is exciting. I'm curious how they change up the gameplay by going between the two, and if you're able to jump between the two instantaneously because of how you can kind of dimension jump. I'm kind of curious to see like what kind of cool stuff they can do, because they talk about how the SSD does a lot of really amazing things in a video that released called Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart Insomniac Insights PS5 on the PlayStation YouTube channel. So it was like a 3-minute video just kind of breaking down a few things about Ratchet & Clank. One of which is just how they are focusing on exploring, as they put it, exploring exotic worlds. The SSD allows them to create these really lush landscapes that they weren't able to do before, and that exploration is kind of key because they can achieve that now. But also just the jumping through rifts is all possible because that SSD. Here's the part that got me excited in those HD Rumble ways, because the DualSense has those haptics, and they were talking about the DualSense and how this is going to play into this game. They said the haptics will make the kind of weapons feel more powerful because you'll get that feedback from the weapons in the joysticks as well as in the triggers. They said in the triggers specifically, the tension in the triggers allow players to feel different responses from each weapon. So like when you're using an item, what was it called? I can't remember what it was called. The Enforcer. It was like a double barrel shotgun. If you kind of pull down on the trigger a little bit, you'll feel tension and you'll be able to shoot just one of the barrels. But if you keep pushing through that tension, you'll actually shoot the second barrel and you'll feel that difference. It's one of those things that I think when you're playing it will just feel very natural, even though it's not necessarily the easiest thing to like explain and say how it goes into gameplay. I'm super excited about that, though. That does sound great to me. And then also 3D audio, which, again, like I think we're going to have to experience that because they're making this promise of makes environmental sounds feel rich and lifelike. Or they said like you'll feel like you're in that rainforest as opposed to just like hearing audio from a rainforest. I'll believe it when I hear it, but I trust it, honestly. I don't see why not. Plus, I also have good headphones, so...
Yep. Plus, I'm a shill, and I'm gonna buy that new Sony 3D audio headset. So I'm gonna experience the shit out of that.
Before we go on to Miles Morales and Horizon Forbidden West, what did you watch the video here for?
I did not.
Ratchet & Clank?
I did not watch the video.
Okay. Are you excited about those advancements at least?
I am excited. I don't have any like preconceived notions of Ratchet & Clank, whether it's good or bad.
That's right. You haven't played one before.
So I feel like I can't get as hyped for that as everything else.
Yeah, I hear you.
Fuck me, I need to put up a poll.
I keep forgetting that you didn't play Ratchet & Clank.
Remind
I always
me in 90
forget
minutes
that.
to put up a Patreon poll.
We did both play Spider-Man, however, though. So we also got an update from Insomniac on Spider-Man Miles Morales. This is an article from Julia Lee at Polygon. What to expect from Spider-Man Miles Morales on PS5. So the events are going to take place 1 year after the first game, and Miles Morales has kind of been trained and is working with Peter Parker now. Because he's still new at being a superhero, he won't necessarily be as confident as Peter Parker was, which I think is kind of cool and exciting. And they kind of talk about how you'll see that in kind of small minutia in the gameplay, where if you're swinging on your web, you're going to be flailing a little bit more because he's new to this, and I think that's kind of a cool touch. I'm excited to see. And the other benefit to Miles, though, is that he has bioelectrical abilities as well as invisibility. I've never heard the term bioelectric before.
Yeah, bioelectricity. That's like jellyfish and things like that. Electric eels.
Oh, okay.
Bioelectricity.
Okay. That makes sense. So I'm excited for this. I'm more excited for this than Spider-Man because I don't really care about Peter Parker that much. I get what he's... Miles Morales sounds like there's a much more interesting character to see there because I haven't seen his journey yet. I know what Peter Parker's journey is. I know with great strength comes great responsibility. I get it. I saw Tobey Maguire. I saw the Andrew Garfield. They didn't show it with Tom Holland, but basically like the same kind of like vibes. Like I know who Peter Parker is. I think that's kind of why I was really bored with Spider-Man. It's just I'm kind of over Peter Parker at this point. But I want to see Miles' story. And I think this is cool that we're getting that, and they're treating it as a part of the gameplay, which this is getting me hyped. What do you feel? How do you feel about how little they talked about this game, though, compared to the other games?
Yeah, obviously, this game they haven't mentioned it yet because this is the first time they're showing off like PS5 first-party games, and that just happened last week. So I feel like they're talking enough about this game, and we've gotten like small press releases saying it's building off of the world that they created for Spider-Man PS4. So like it's going to be basically the same engine, the same world. They're just going to have it be more efficient travel, no loading, all those kind of things, and like smaller updates with DualSense. And like they said, every like thwip of your web you'll be able to feel how that feels. Every punch, all that kind of stuff. So I feel like there's not really much to talk about other than clarifying, yes, it's about Miles Morales. Yes, it's a standalone game, and you're going to have some PS5 enhancements. I feel like that's all there is to say.
I totally hear you. If they hadn't done these little 3-minute breakdown videos for Horizon Forbidden West and Ratchet and Clank, they're like official like videos of here's how Ratchet and Clank uses DualSense, here's how it uses the SSD. I'm like, why didn't you do that for the game that's coming out sooner than those other games? It feels strange to me, especially when people do seem confused about kind of what to expect from that. But I don't know. We'll see more beforehand. I guess I'm surprised that they spent more time on Ratchet and Clank and Horizon Forbidden West. Speaking of Horizon Forbidden West, we got a video from them as well. So that video shows the same footage that we had seen from the trailer already, but kind of explaining kind of what some of their goals were. So the PlayStation 5 SSD, they said, allows for kind of the virtually no loading screens, which I'm assuming means when we're in the world, there's no loading screens. But when you're loading the game for the first time, maybe there will be. I think it's what they mean by virtually. That doesn't bother me at all.
I think they said something about fast travel as well. Like there will be no loading with fast travel. Mm-hmm. That might be because like in the first game, whenever you fast travel, there's obviously a loading screen between them. I think that's what they mean by virtually no loading screen. So
Yeah. We'll see. And then they kind of just detailed a little bit more how the world is going to be different than we had before, but I hadn't played the last game, so I wasn't sure of the exact clear-cut differences there. But they weren't talking a lot about what these differences are, just because they said the mystery is a big part of the story, so they don't want to reveal too much yet. They want it to kind of be revealed naturally. But one thing I thought was cool is that there's this tribe in the game that can take over and like hack the machines and control them, which is kind of an interesting obstacle to then have in combat with games, where you have some of these big kind of robotic monstrosities that are just wild and some that are controlled and can maybe have different AI because they're coordinating differently with other humans or other robots. That could lead to some really cool possibilities. In the end, they are aiming right now for a 2021 release date.
Hell yeah. Hell
so within
yeah.
a year
That's
of launch,
badass. That might be
right.
my most anticipated PS5 game of everything.
I still need to play Horizon Zero Dawn before it comes out. I will play that before it comes out. I'm going to do that.
2 weeks before.
But I got time now.
Only after it gets released. You're not going to play it for 2 weeks, and then you're going to play the first one.
Hey, if they have some crazy crunch practices, maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
So moving on to the Nintendo Quest log, we surprisingly had a big week for Pokemon, which I wasn't expecting. There were lots of new announcements and a promise for a pretty big future announcement. So let's just jump right into it. So there's a new Pokemon Snap announced for Nintendo Switch from Shadow at Silicon Era.
Huzzah!
The game will be developed by Bandai Namco, and has no release window at the moment. It has been more than 20 years since HAL Laboratory released the Pokemon Snap originally on Nintendo 64. I have never played Pokemon Snap. It sounds like Chad's excited about it. I don't know. Tell us about it, Chad. Why are you hyped?
That was one of those games that I rented from Blockbuster, went and snapped all them Pokepics, and I never owned it, unfortunately. I just got it from Blockbuster for like a week and then had to return it. But I'm excited as F about this, and the Switch is the perfect one for this. And I hope that they have like the motion control so you can actually look around, like what early VR was on your phone. That's what I kind of hope. It looks really great. The environments are beautiful. The Pokemon are doing all sorts of cool things. You can snap pictures of them doing things you've never seen Pokemon do before, according to the press release, which I hope is sex. I hope there's Pokesex. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
They're going to eat apples. You can watch them eat apples.
Apples, berries,
crazy.
raspberries, pinnat berries, bananaberries, nababerries, all sorts of berries.
We have another subscriber interrogative, this time from Dusty, Every Black Lives Matters Hill. At Dusty Hill says, with the new Pokemon Snap confirmed, what's the next series that will make a comeback after a decade of silence?
I've got two hot takes. Hot take number one, Perfect Dark. It's time for Perfect Dark to come back. It had its heyday back on the N64. It was better than GoldenEye. It had a weird sequel, prequel, Perfect Dark Zero, when the Xbox 360 launched that was not really that good, but it's time. It's time for it to come back. Second hot take, I think after a decade, more than a decade of silence, it's time for Mario Party to finally get good again. Like, it's time for them to resurrect Mario Party and stop propping up its dead body and make us a good Mario Party game.
I have a very similar answer to that one, which is it's been, gosh, at least 20 years since we got a Star Fox game. Star Fox 64 was the last Star Fox game that we got. It's been more than a decade. We need a Star Fox game.
Yep.
Because nothing has happened in the past 2 decades. So I think Star Fox game.
Did you play Star Fox Zero? I can't remember.
No, I didn't.
No.
I played Assault and Adventure, but those were knockoff games that weren't actually part of Star Fox, according to the community. I actually don't have that harsh of an opinion on that. I just thought it'd be funny. And I think the other one, Advance Wars. I don't know if it's been a decade. It might have not been a decade at this point. It might be less than that. But I'm still calling Advance Wars. I've always liked Advance Wars more than Fire Emblem. And I would like to see that return, especially since Fire Emblem has made such a big comeback. I think that kind of made has opened up a door for Advance Wars to do the same. So I'd like to see that.
Hot.
Yeah. The other Pokemon announcements. Here's one that was actually really confusing for me. Because this is Pokemon Smile. It's a new free app designed to provide fun toothbrushing experience. And it's exactly what it is. It's designed for kids, teach them how to brush their teeth. I kept seeing people talking about Pokemon Smile on Twitter, and I'm like, I know you're taking a picture and you're snapping a camera, but it's called Pokemon Snap. You're not smiling for the photo. And then I'm like, oh, there is something called Pokemon Smile, and it's really dumb for me. If it helps children, that's a good thing.
Yes,
but I'm not
as a
kidding.
grown adult man who's in his mid-20s, this is probably not an app aimed at you.
Probably not, no. This isn't aimed at you, though, Chad. Pokemon Go is getting Mega Evolutions. We don't have much detail, but it's happening.
Yeah, we
Thoughts?
don't know what that
Excited?
means. I mean, in traditional Pokemon Go, that means, or in the traditional Pokemon games, that means you have to get an evolution stone, like the Mega Stone for whatever person it is, and then it's just something that you activate once during battles. I don't know if it's going to be like a battle exclusive thing in Pokemon Go, or whether it's going to be just an entire new evolution that you can get if you happen to come across the stone for each Pokemon. Is it going to be only certain ones? Is it going to be all of them? We don't know that yet. But they did say that it's going to be tailored to that Pokemon Go experience, so it's going to probably function a little bit differently than the regular games do.
Prediction? It's totally going to be based off of, like, if you have 45 Squirtles, then you can Mega Evolve one. It'll work like this. That's how they do evolution in the current game, isn't it?
Yeah, but then they also they have like Unova stones, and they have whatever they have evolution stones already in the game as well, sunstones and things like that. So it might function similar to those. But I don't know if it's going to be an entire second, like extra evolution, or whether it's just going to be like a power up during battle or something like that.
Yeah, but you have to like sacrifice a Squirtle in order to Mega Evolve that Squirtle, because that'd be awful. That's animal cruelty.
Cut off its head.
Which we have a legal precedent for that now. I think we determined it was animal cruelty on Game Court.
That's right. Yes,
I think that's how that turned out. Pokemon Cafe Mix was announced on Nintendo Switch. This is from Aye Nagosa at DualShockers. So you'll basically play as a cafe owner working alongside Pokemon and completing puzzles to kind of grow and expand your store. This is going to be a free-to-play game on iOS, Android, and Switch coming on June 24th.
It is a free-to-start game, similar to Super Mario Run, not free-to-play. Like Dr. Mario.
Yeah. I wrote here free-to-start, but I did say free-to-play. It looks cute. Pretty much all these announcements, though, and honestly, even including Pokemon Snap, I'm like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Pokemon person.
I'm not a huge toothbrushing person. So
I'm not a big Mega Evolution kind of person. But something else is coming on June 24th. There are more announcements for the Pokemon franchise, and this time it could be an even bigger announcement. Yeah. Oh shit. Can you pull up the Summer Games Best Quets blah blah thing?
It is now time for Summer Games Bet Fest. Bet. Say it.
I said it halfway through. Bet.
That's right. It's Summer Games Bet Fest, where we take bets on summer's best game fest. Summer Game Fest. Summer of gaming. The rest are best for bets. Bet.
So the next Pokemon Presents is going to be on June 24th. At the end of the entire Pokemon Present, Ishihara, the CEO of a Pokemon company, he said that it was going to be a big project they're going to be showing off at this June 24th event. The initial speculation is that it's going to be a Let's Go versions for Gold and Silver, because behind him during the video were a bunch of second-generation Pokemon.
There was also a black stuffed Pikachu, right?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, on the left side there was a black. On the right side there was a full-size regular Pikachu. On the left side there was an all-black version of that same Pikachu.
I mean, that's the big announcement. From going forward, all Pikachus will be black. That's the big announcement.
Yep.
So here is the bet. Let's just say it is going to happen, and it is a Let's Go. We're going to make an assumption for this bet.
Okay.
Because I totally buy it. I think the evidence is pretty clear that it's going to be something about second gen, right? Mm-hmm. If it is that Let's Go game, and it's for the Pokemon Gold and Silver version, one of my favorite parts of Gold and Silver is that it had the Johto and the Kanto regions. Therefore, you had 16 gyms. And that was true in the GBA and the DS remakes. But Let's Go Pikachu just came out 2 years ago and is the Kanto region. So the current question is, do they have to? Is this, if it is the Gold and Silver Let's Go version, will it include Johto and Kanto?
Can I invite a third thing in here? There's a
These
third
aren't
option.
rigid bets. You can do whatever you want. Yeah.
So there's a third option that I think might be interesting. They're exploring expansion DLC with Sword and Shield, and the first one just came out. I don't know how popular that is, but because Let's Go Pikachu
I think I know where you're
Eevee
going with this.
already have half of the game in it, what if Johto is just an expansion for that game? A $20 expansion or a $30 expansion that introduces Gen 2 Pokemon and an entire other world for you to explore, maybe post-game. That's going to be my Summer Games Bet Fest, that it is actually an expansion of these rather than its own standalone thing.
Interesting. I'm going to say, it's only going to be Johto.
So it's
That
going
if
to be
you
its
wanted
own
to do
standalone
Kanto-
thing, and it's going to be Johto. Nice.
Because they can do that.
Yep.
And they have Let's Go on Kanto. So it's like, hey, if you really want to go back to Kanto, we have Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee if you want to go back to Kanto and do that. I don't know, knowing how Game Freak kind of operates, probably I think that would make the most sense. I think ultimately this is still weird for me overall because the second expansion for Sword and Shield is coming out in the fall. And to even just release a new Pokemon game alongside the expansion is interesting. Why do it this year? Unless they're going to announce on June 24th
like
that next year.
Tournament 2 or something like that we really don't care about.
Yeah. But they had all those Gen 2 Pokemon behind them.
Were there a lot of Gen 2 Pokemon in Pokken Tournament? I don't know.
Maybe it's an expansion for Pokken Tournament that has all second gen Pokemon in it. Who knows?
Maybe it replaces them all with Totodile.
Moving on to the third-party quest log. Cyberpunk 2077 just keeps getting pushed back. Last year was adamant. No. That April release date is definitely they're not going to push back from that. And now they've pushed back twice. So it's being delayed until November 19th. This is from Chris Moyes at Destructoid. Basically, the gist of it was that they wanted to spend 2 extra months just balancing the game mechanics and fixing bugs because they want it to be as good as it possibly can. They kind of cited that whole it's basically a mantra of theirs. It's done when it's ready. And they're just living up to that. And they said, we know that this is going to upset some people, but this is not just a value be safe for marketing purposes. Like, this is something that we believe. And sometimes it means we got to stand up for it, even if it's going to upset some people. But we hope that you're alongside us with this. And it seems like pretty much everyone's like, yeah, take your time. Like,
yeah, I think the good news that came from this is that they mentioned that it's pretty much content complete. And that, like, the narrative's done, all of the game, like, everything's finished. They gotta make it run smoothly, basically.
Yeah. Because of the main game getting delayed, of course, the DLC and multiplayer components have also been delayed. There was no release date for those anyway, so we don't really even know how long that could be, but that's important to note as well. But it's not all bad. So CD Projekt Red announces Cyberpunk 2077 is backwards compatible. Users will receive free next-gen upgrades. So on Twitter, CD Projekt Red said the following: "We are happy to confirm that Cyberpunk 2077 will be backwards compatible with both next-gen consoles. Your PS4 copy of the game will work on PS5 on launch day. Anyone who buys the game on Xbox One will be able to play their copy on Xbox Series X when the console launches too. A later upgrade on Cyberpunk 2077, taking full advantage of the next-gen hardware, will be available for free."
Nice. So saying,
very nice.
PlayStation, you're taking too long to announce it. We're just going to say it. It's going to be a free upgrade. Don't worry about buying 2 copies.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really glad to hear this. Initially when I heard about the delay, that's the exact concern I brought up is, well, what if I buy the PS4 version of it, but there's no way it's going to carry? And then Dallas sent me that article in response. So thank you, Dallas. You saved my life. I was going to panic and die as a result because I cannot wait. I'm so excited for this game. I'll say this. So obviously I'm doing my whole delaying on playing Last of Us Part 2. Mm-hmm. I think a reason I'm able to do that is because I'm actually more excited for Cyberpunk. So right now I'm more actively thinking about Cyberpunk and how excited I am for that than I am Last of Us Part 2.
You know what's weird is I'm
so excited for this.
I was thinking about you playing Last of Us Part 2, and I was like, I don't know if Holden's going to finish this game. I don't know.
Well, I guess don't tell me.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you why, but it was like, I wonder. There's a chance that I think that Holden might not even finish Last of Us Part 2. Whereas if you ask me about Cyberpunk, I feel like that's all you're going to fucking talk about for years.
No, I mean, what I've seen the spoilers. I'm not going to talk about the spoilers are at all. I'll just say that from what I've seen from the spoilers, I really liked the direction that the story was going in, and I loved what it made me think about this world and how this world can progress going forward. I'm really, really excited to play that game. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know yet. Chad, take us to that ad read.
Take it to the bridge. Everyone, I'd like to talk to you about Affable Idiots. That is the brand under which we as Respawn aim, fire, fall, along with our other podcast, AAWY, and so much more. We need two things from you. Hi, do you like YouTube? I know you do, you sly son of a bitch. You're on YouTube right now, aren't you? Just watching my face. What is it doing? Making some good faces. While you're here, why don't you open up our description, expand it a bit, click on the links, and subscribe to all three of our channels so that we can get vanity names like youtube.com/respawnaimfire. Because right now that's not a thing. So we need your help there. Second, you can go to every podcast service you ever have listened to us on or plan to listen to us on or that you hate, and you can rate us 5 stars. That helps us a lot. It makes us smile when we see your little reviews. And then finally, you can go to patreon.com/respawnaimfire, where you can go and vote for what we are playing next month, which is going to be a poll that will be on there by the time you're listening to this, unless you're listening live, in which case, hold your fucking horses. You can also play... What did I just say? Vote for Barf. That's what I said. You can also download some dope wallpapers. You can also play with us each week during game night, like this Thursday. Like every other Thursday. And like on Nintendo nights on Friday. Side note... What is our barf game this month? I have not started playing. Alan Wake. That's what it is.
Alan Wake.
Play Alan Wake. That's it. That's all I've got to say. Let's move on to our main quest.
Yeah. So the main quest this week is a pretty simple one. It's really just, what questions do we have for next gen at this point?
Oh, Holden. What questions we got? I have a list of questions. Do you want to bounce back and forth? You just want to chat it up? You want to chat it? You don't have a list, do you? You've just got a mental idea of I don't know this yet. There are some very obvious ones that we've already even brought up on this show, like what is the price going to be? What are the different SKUs going to have, like the hard drive size, and are there going to be 2 Xboxes? Is there a Lockhart and a Series X? So those are some obvious questions. But then there's some not so obvious questions. The first one... I have several questions related to the operating systems. I need them to show off the OS. Especially because this week, Sony said that the PS5's operating system and its UI will be a complete overhaul. And they said, quote, no pixel goes untouched. So it's going to be completely different than what we saw on PS4. I'm excited to see.
They've alluded to that, but they haven't been that extreme about it. Yeah. They've said they're going to change the home screen, but that's a big deal. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I had the same question.
Yeah, and Microsoft,
why do we need to change it? That's another one.
Why do you need to? One, because I click on the party chat, and it takes me 17 years for me to load and just see if there's a party of anyone to join.
Yeah, but I think that's
more about performance.
The SSD could fix that. Yeah, SSD and the CPU could fix that. Why do they need to change it? Who knows?
Yeah. So what does the UI look like? We know on Xbox they've mentioned that it will be the same across the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X generations. That it's going to be identical across those two, which is good and bad. It's good because that means it's a similar experience. You can move from one to the next without having to worry about relearning a whole operating system. But it might be bad because that means that there probably won't be any Series X specific features that it takes advantage of. I have another question, though, along those lines, and this has to do with the operating system and the controller. What is that microphone on the PS5 controller actually used for? We know that they've told us, oh, yeah, it's for short chats if you want to have them without a headset. No one's going to do that. No one's going to sit there and talk into their controller for short chats on Party Chat. What is it actually used for? What's the feature they haven't shown us yet? I don't know.
I think people would just call each other on PlayStation all the time for a quick 1-minute chat. Hey, bud, you're playing a game. Good day. Bye. Very likely. Very likely.
We've seen a patent, I think last year sometime, for a PlayStation voice assistant. Mm-hmm. As I was sending a photo to Matt and trying to type about something in the photo, I was like, God, it would be so good if we just had dictation here to be able to speak into my microphone and it writes it out rather than having to type on that fucking keyboard. So, what is the real use of that microphone that they just haven't revealed yet?
Do you know what it is?
What?
They want to save money on the little robot buddy they're going to put next to you. So they're not going to put any microphones on that device. So you talk to your controller, and then he talks then he talks to you. Perfect. That's what it's for. 100%. 100%.
What are the questions you got? I've got some more, but I want to let you talk.
I honestly, you covered a lot of the questions that I had. I think to go beyond that, and even kind of beyond launch, we probably won't be discussing this year. But like a question I have is, how much different is PlayStation VR really going to be on PS5? Because some of the things that they're talking about are so obviously applicable to VR, but they can't talk about it yet.
Right.
Like 3D audio, that's going to make VR amazing. Having like the whole example they showed off in, or they discussed in the Ratchet and Clank video with having the rainforest be realistic in its sounds. How is that going to impact like VR? What are VR games going to look like with a new headset? Is that going to be a huge graphical leap because the SSD can really load in assets a lot faster and keep that frame rate smoother because assets are kind of able to come in quicker? Like, what is that experience going to look like? That's a huge question for me because I think based on things they're talking about, Sony really has the ability to take the upper hand in VR because of that guaranteed SSD that PC can't rely on. And that's a huge jump for them. They already have the upper hand in VR with the number of units sold, so they have the best support base. Like, this could be really a revolutionary time for VR because of the PS5. So I'm really excited to see that. How does that tie into the camera? They still have a camera they're going to sell with the PS5, but is that for VR? Is that like, what's going to happen?
Whatever that create button
is it just for Twitch? Yeah, and that's what they do. What's the create button? How's that going to change the way I interact with my PS5?
There's a developer out there that I forget who it is, but it was like a prominent PSVR developer who mentioned that they are working on a VR game, a PSVR game that cannot run on a PS4. It is going to be exclusive to the PS5, but they wouldn't say anything about, like, does it use current hardware? Does it use next-gen hardware, like new PS5 PSVR hardware? But so like there are already developers making it, obviously, because the system's coming out. But like even though they haven't announced a next-gen VR, there will be PS5 VR titles that you cannot play on PS4, whether it's with the same headset, with the improvements that you just mentioned, where like it can load shit faster because of the SSD, or whether it's with a new piece of hardware.
Yeah, like if the tracking is handled differently, for example, because they're doing more of an inline tracking as opposed to the exterior camera tracking. Like Oculus has figured that out. They might have a different solution.
Yeah.
It's something very, very curious. Is Microsoft going to take advantage of VR this generation? They've said they haven't. They've only really said no to VR on Xbox One, and they had this really odd excuse, which was, well, Xbox is more for flat screen TV experiences, and PC is the VR area. But with the power that you have on an Xbox Series X, there's kind of no excuse. Like, are they going to keep like a very open format to it, where you could just plug in an Oculus and like that just works? Like, because if PC is big on VR, bridging PC VR and Xbox VR will help with that ecosystem that Microsoft is trying to make. Like, they're not for fragmenting their kind of ecosystem. So it makes sense for them to put VR on the Xbox as well. They haven't talked about what does that look like.
There was that Phil Spencer, that controversial Phil Spencer quote. I want to say it was around Game Awards time, where he said, I can't remember whether it was an interview or in a tweet, but he said that they don't have any VR on Xbox because no one's asking for it. And so I feel like that was pretty recent. And if that was if that was their stance within 6 to 8 months ago, I don't know if it's something that we'll see anytime in the near term for Xbox. I think what you mentioned is that it's much more likely that they just make it open and allow you to use existing VR hardware on your Series X.
I think that's the more likely outcome. But what Phil Spencer said about VR is the same thing that Sony said about backwards compatibility not that long ago as well. And this is kind of a tactic that I think is you see in marketing. Steve Jobs did this a lot, which is I need you to focus on the next year and not what I'm planning for the year after that. So like I remember when the iPod Photo came out, he made this huge joke about how nobody wants to watch a movie on their iPod. That's crazy stupid. Buy the iPod Photo right now. Next year, iPod Video came out, and like the TV shows and movies, and like so that didn't last very long. And Steve Jobs must have known they were working on a video iPod at that point. There's no way he didn't know that. So I feel like him saying that, it could just mean that they're not doing anything, or it could be like, hey, don't focus on that right now. Focus on Series X.
Right.
I don't know. That's just speculation. It's kind of I can say that about Steve Jobs in hindsight because I have the timeline of events. I can't say that in this case, but I can speculate.
You brought up backwards compatibility with PS4, and that's kind of with PS5, and that's I want to know more about that. They've shown off that there are going to be like 3 modes of the CPU, and speculation is that it's like a PS3 version of the CPU or PS3 mode of the CPU, a PS4 one and a PS5 one. So I would love to know, like, are my digital PS3 games, are my PS1 classics, are all of those, are my PSP minis, or my PlayStation minis, are those going to be playable? But I also kind of want to know about, like, all of my dynamic themes that I've got on PS4. Are those going to be able to be on PS5?
Because if the UI is changing completely,
right.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I know, like, that's even the feature itself of a dynamic theme is something that launched on PS3, and when they launched PS4, it wasn't even a thing that was supported. Like, you couldn't have dynamic themes, and then eventually they reintroduced it. Like, is that something that's going to be? If I've paid money for something, I don't think I've only paid maybe like $4 or $5 total on dynamic themes, but is that something that can carry over for me? My avatars, I'm sure PSN avatars will, but I want to know.
Yeah. The trophies, of course, will come over. You'd be devastated. You would switch to Xbox if they
I
didn't
would
do
not
that.
switch to Xbox, but I would be devastated if trophies were no longer a thing on PS5 or if I had to start over from scratch.
So the Xbox UI was brought up earlier. So this is one that's confusing. This is definitely a question I have because you're right. They have said the UI is going to be the same. I think Tom Warren at The Verge, he said like, "Oh, I've heard that the UI is going to be the same." But then we also saw that leak that showed a different store UI. So the UI might be the same, but it might be a different UI for both. Like that they're releasing this generation available for both systems.
Right.
But it is the same UI, but it's a new one.
And
it's
Microsoft
like
has always been
double speak there.
Like even they like on 360 when they used to have the blades and then they kind of switched over from that. Like they have not been someone who's shying away from completely changing the UI experience mid-generation. So yeah, I would not be surprised if even the Xbox One UI changed at the end of this year to kind of accommodate. Whereas the PS4 and PS5 and PS3 and PS4, they were basically the same. We've added new features like making folders on PS4, but aside from that, the UI has stayed the same.
Yeah. I think the other major question I have right now is what does third-party next-gen support look like? I got the impression from EA they're not going to have much to show off for a little while. The little tech demo thing they showed off was cool, but I don't know about much else. But I mean, Bethesda had Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo are both going to be next-gen exclusives, and that's a big studio.
PS5 exclusives for a while, which is interesting.
Yeah, and Ubisoft is, I mean, they generally have games that launch for a console. They're pretty much known like for that. And there's been a lot of talk of cross-gen games and how much those cross-gen games will impact how we view the next gen, feeling like a big improvement. But I feel like with some of the stuff we saw at the PlayStation event, it does seem more likely that we're actually going to get some next-gen exclusive games from the third-party developers. Like maybe not Call of Duty, but like Activision will release another game that's maybe smaller and is next-gen. And like what does that kind of stuff look like? And I'm still really waiting to see what that looks like. I think we have a pretty good idea at this point that Sony will have a next-gen exclusive games made for their system. Xbox has their kind of smart delivery route that they're going with. It's inclusive across their ecosystem. But we don't really know how individual third parties feel about it to kind of create a consensus on, yes, this is what third-party next-gen experiences look like. We don't have that yet. So I'm curious to see that. I think Microsoft's event will probably be the place that we see that.
Yeah. My last thing that I have is about services. Like, how are the services going to evolve now that we have new hardware? Are they going to cost more? Like there was from PS3 to PS4, PlayStation Plus was now required for online play. Over the lifetime of PS4, it increased $10 per year in order to have PS Plus. Like, is it going to cost more for these new systems? How are they going to expand? Are we going to see things merge like PS Now and PS Plus, like Game Pass and Xbox Live? Are there going to be any kind of new services? Like, I would love to see something new come out from one of these as well. And then finally, I would love apps. Like, the apps, we know that the Xbox Game Pass app they've just announced this week is getting a little bit of an overhaul, like on iOS and Android. But I would love to see a better integration between the PlayStation app on my phone and my PS5. Like I want it to be like a really rich UI. I want to be able to like browse my library, tell it to remotely download something, which I can do now like in a really clunky way through the web browser by just going to the PlayStation Store. But I want to be able to view all of that information and maybe sort my games or browse through them on my PS app and all of that kind of stuff within my phone.
Chad, you just put a wish in my head. I want something now. I want an AirPlay equivalent kind of thing to for PlayStation 5. Like, for example, there is a send to PS5 in the share section of Android and iPhones where if you want a YouTube video and you're like, you know what? I want to see that on my TV. People who don't have an Apple TV, don't have a Chromecast, they can just bloop, send it up. I kind of want that.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And better app support could do stuff. That'd be nice. Yeah. I don't use the apps that much because they kind of aren't great.
Right now, I mean, yeah, I use it. I use the PlayStation app to basically redeem a code every once in a while. Or I'll check out the friends thing and see if somebody's online. Maybe I'll jump in and play Warzone or something like that. But that's pretty much all I use. I use the messages feature just because I have to send a screenshot to a person before I could save the message onto my phone.
Oh, yeah, that's what needs to be fixed.
So I use the messages app for that. But yeah, I would love to use them more. I would love to have them have better interactivity with my console. That's all the questions I've got. That's all the questions we need to know the answers to.
That's all I got, too. That's all the questions I have.
Dopey Cocoa Puff. Let's get to Game on Game Show. The Game on our Game Show where we play a game called Game On. Where we game. Today's game show is just us leaving and getting off the air so everyone can go play The Last of Us Part 2 instead.
I was really confused because I'm like, it doesn't say Game on Game Show in the notes here. What's going on?
We don't have one because I was playing Last of Us all the time and I didn't come up with anything. But you should really be playing The Last of Us anyway, unless you're holding it. In which case, go play number 1. And then...
Yeah.
So that's your game. Everyone, instead of listening to us, go play The Last of Us Part 1 or 2 or both. Remember, before we leave... Go to YouTube, subscribe to all of our shit. Go to patreon.com/respawnnameFire. Float us a buck. Get some cool perks. Go vote in the poll for next month's barf game. And then, in the meantime, play Alan Wake, because that's our barf game for this month.
Is that a message for our audience or for ourselves?
Both? Until next time, here's our usual sign-off. I was gonna make it the burp, but I already burped prematurely. That's it.